Okay, this is a question from the GCSE Intermediate Numeracy Unit 1 paper. Okay, this is about drawing a graph from some information, and typically the graph is a straight line. So let's have a look to see what we have. Petra is organising a prom for her year group. The number of people attending the prom is likely to be between 20 and 80. There's some numbers there, so I underline them. Probably important. The cost of holding the prom at the hotel Avon Wen would be as follows. The hire of the room, £100, food, £15 per person, welcome drink and arrival, £3 per person, decorations, £2 per person. Draw a graph to illustrate the total cost of holding the prom for between 20 and 80 people. So I'm going to have total cost for between 20 and 80 people. Use the graph paper below. Okay, well, we can see on the graph paper they haven't put any information on there for us. We have to generate everything. We have to generate the labels, the numbers, the title, everything. Okay. First thing I'm deciding is which axis I'm going to have total cost and which axis I'm going to have number of people, because that's what I'm comparing. Total cost for between 20 and 80 people. Well, we generally put costs on the vertical axis, so I'm going to put my total cost on this axis, so I'm going to label that, and I'm going to put number of people, number of pupils on that axis. Now, we don't have any data yet for the total cost, but we do have some data for the number of people attending. We've got 20 to 80, it says people and they're not pupils, sorry. We've got 20 to 80 that we need to create the graph for. Well, let's have a look at the size of my graph paper. Well, it goes up in 10, so 10 little squares we got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Well, if I go up in 10s, that's not going to get up to 80. What about if I go up in 20s? 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Right. So if I do that, I know I'll be able to fit on my data for the number of pupils they want, which is between 20 and 80. I keep saying pupils, but there's people. Never mind. Okay. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Just going to change that a second because I'm picky. Right, look like a 6, not a 0. Right, now, where am I going to get the data for my total cost? Well, this is the key to doing these sorts of questions. Usually, if you think about it, when we create a graph, what do we have first, or what are we presented with? We're presented with a table of data. So we haven't got a table of data in this question, so we've got to create our own table. So in our table, we will have number of pupils on the top. So that's usually the x-axis. Goes on the top, and we'll have total cost underneath in pounds. And we just do a nice simple table like that. I'd expect you to use a ruler. I haven't got one. And the number of pupils we're going to look at are the numbers we've got on our axis at the bottom. Well, I'm only going to go up to 80. So I'm going to do 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. And I'm going to work out the total cost for each of those numbers of people, and I'll be able to plot those points on my graph and join them up. And it should be a straight line. But let's have a look. How am I going to do that? Well, first of all, the hire of the room is £100. The food is £15 per person, welcome drink £3 per person, decorations £2 per person. I'm going to combine those, and that adds up to a nice £20 per person. Okay, excuse me, sorry about that. £20 per person. The hire of the room is £100 no matter how many people go. So if 20 people go, it's going to be £100. If 40 people go, £100. So it's a fixed cost. So even if no people go, the hire of the room is going to be the only cost. Nobody's going, the room is going to cost £100. I know in reality you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't hire the room with nobody going. But for the purposes of the graph, that would be the first point. Right, if 20 people go, then we've got to work out the cost of 20 people attending plus the cost of the hire of the room. So we've got to do 20 times £20. Well, that's fairly straightforward. 2 2s are 4, so 20 times 20 is 400. For 40 people, oops, what have I forgot to do? I forgot to add the cost of the room. See, be careful, always double check. So it's £500, £400 for the people going and £100 for the room. 40 people, 40 times 20 is 800, plus the 100, that's 900. 60 people, 60 times 20, 6 2s are 12, so that's 1,200, plus the 100 is 1,300. If we notice, it's going up by 400 each time. So I reckon that's going to be £1,700, but let's double check. 80 times 20, 80 people, £20 per person. 8 2s are 16, so 80 times 20 is 1,600, plus the 100, 1,700. Now I have 5 points I can plot on my graph, and I now know what numbers to put on my axis. So if it goes up to 1,700, I need to make sure this axis goes to at least 1,700. But I can't, I could go beyond it, but I can't go less than it. So let's see how many squares I've got. Well, going up in tens, I've got 10, 20, 30, 40. I know I'm going to go up in 500s. Okay, so I'm going to start at 0. That's going to be 500. I'm going to put a little mark there. Little mark there. 1,000. 1,000. Little mark there. 1,500. And little mark there. 2,000. So the maximum of my total cost axis goes beyond the maximum total cost in the table, so that's going to be okay. I'll be able to plot that point. The reason I've gone up in 500s because that makes these nice little squares 50 each, because if I've got 10 little squares that's equal 500, then 500 divided by 10 is 50, so each little square is 50. Similarly, when I go across here, let's just make sure we understand the scale. I've got 20 for 10 little squares, so each little square is 2. 20 divided by 10. Right, let's start plotting some points. So the first point is 0 for number of pupils, so that's from there, and that goes up to 100. Now each little square is 50, we said, so that's two 50s, 2 little squares. Little cross like that. Next one, 2,500. So across to 20, up to 500, that was a nice point. 40, 900. So across to 40, up to 900. We'll go up to 1,000, take off 100. 50, 100. So come down 2 squares from there. Be as accurate as you can. 60, 1,300. I'm going to 500. 1,450, 1,400, 1,350, 1,300. By there. And 80, 1,700. Well, I'll go up to 80 and I'll go up another 200. So 50, 100, 150, 200. So that's 4 squares up. That's by there. That's looking good. They're on a straight line, which is what you need to do next. And I have to do this by hand because I haven't got a ruler. Okay, sorry about that. I was turning my tablet around. Here we go. So there's my graph. You've got to make sure your line does go through the centre of all the crosses. So place your ruler along the crosses. Put your pencil. Sorry, I should have said always draw your graphs in pencil. Put your pencil on the cross and push your ruler up to the pencil to ensure that it's nice and straight and in the right place. There's one thing missing on there now, and that's a title. So I'm just going to add the title, and it's costs of, what can we call it? Organising a prom for her year group. So I'm just going to call it prom costs. And that'll do. So let's just double check. I've got everything looks okay. My axes are uniform, so it's going up in 20. It's going up the same amounts each time on both axes. I've plotted them carefully. It all fits in a line. Yeah, everything looks good. And I expect it to be a straight line because the cost per person was constant. So this actually represents the gradient of the line. So it's going up with a gradient of 20. Okay. Right, so there we are. That's a typical question where you have to draw a graph from a bunch of information, usually a straight line graph. The key to this, though, was ensuring that you drew a table to generate the information you needed in order to draw your graph. Don't forget labels, don't forget titles, make sure you use a uniform scale on each axis. Okay, hope that helps. Thank you very much.